Hey guys, how's it going? If you remember, there was a time I was writing my demos in Jersey and then I switched to REST Easy because I couldn't boot my Jersey code anymore. And certainly that has a reason. And I want to show you what the reason is and what you can do to detect the reason more easily than I did using Jakarta REST API in this video. So first of all, what was my actual problem that I produced? You remember that I couldn't start the Jersey code anymore, and the actual program looked like this. I reproduce it quickly by running the Jersey code once. This one is correctly executing. It is bootstrapping, and it tells you to bootstrap URI into that service. And now I will demonstrate what happened actually before I decided to switch to REST Easy to solve it. So it stopped here. And as you have seen, I just clicked twice here, and that was more or less what happened at that point in my demonstration back then when I said I can't start it anymore. There was a process running already blocking that port. So as you can see, we're going with 8080 because this is a default port of Jersey. And the question is, why was it working with REST Easy? And the solution is rather simple to say. REST Easy default port is not 8080, it's 8081. So if I fake this here, so this still is Jersey code, but I provide a different default port. Then it's bootstrapping just fine because now it binds to a different port. So this is the situation we had, and my solution was go with REST Easy. This is totally nonsense, certainly. This has nothing to do with Jersey or with REST Easy because I can recreate the same problem with 8081 just easily. Or let's even so like this one, clicking again, right? It hangs. And even with REST Easy, I can reproduce the same problem. Let's just go here and don't use Jersey by default, but use REST Easy by default, and you will see the same problem, right? If a port is blocked, the port is blocked. You can't change anything with switching to a different product. This was just my solution in that episode to demonstrate you how easy it is to switch to REST Easy. So please don't get me misunderstood. I wouldn't say the solution for everything is switching from Jersey to REST Easy. So as you can see here, the proof, REST Easy goes with 8081. And if we start a second time, REST Easy has the same problem. So it doesn't come up with the base URI, it also hangs. So let's find the correct solution for this. So to find out, we need a tool that tells us what was the problem in bootstrapping. Certainly, as I know what my problem was, I could use a tool that tells me the open ports and which process is listening on that open port, right? But for that, I need to know that this is the problem or this is the cause of my trouble. So how to find the cause of my trouble? Because starting the software didn't tell me anything, it just hangs. And this was actually my personal fault, or maybe it was deliberately to show you this tutorial. So you should never go with this bootstrap code. This bootstrap code is taken from the JAX-RS or Jakarta REST specification just to demonstrate how easy it is to bootstrap a service. In the real world, certainly there is something like error handling, and we haven't done that yet. So today, let's talk about error handling first. How can I handle an error in bootstrapping? As you can see, we have a start method, and that start method has an then accept. And that then accept, what it does is, it is only executed when everything is fine. So the start method is starting in the background. There's a background process. It is using a second thread. And that second thread will enter the accept method when all is fine, when the bootstrap is done correctly. It will do nothing when there was an error. So we never see that line. And the first thread which invoked the start method runs in this one, which just said wait endless. So how to get the error message? And the trick is this dot. This dot tells us there is an object created by start. And with this object, we do then accept. So maybe we can do something with this object to get a hand on the error. And yes, we can do that. And this has nothing to do with JAX-RS. This is plain old Java 8. What we need is this object first. So this object, this object is a completion stage. So if you have no understanding what a completion stage is, there are great tutorials on the web, but in short, it's a step in running a fiber, right? So if you think of a thread being consistent of subsequent fibers, a completion stage is simply one step in running that fiber. So what we tell here is that after the first step is done, which is starting, then a second step shall happen. So this completion stage creates another completion stage in the same fiber. So let's do a bit more code. Let's give code that says exceptionally do something else. So we have this code and the compiler tells us we did it horribly wrong. So let's help us. The IDE can tell us what we have done wrong, and you can see here exceptionally wants to have a function, and the function is getting injected a throwable. The throwable is like the mother of all exceptions. So it contains our error, and this is what we want to get hands on. And the function is giving back something that extends instance. So okay, we have the possibility to do nothing or to create an instance. So we can catch the problem and fix it somehow. So today we just want to catch it. We don't want to fix it. So let's do the correct code here, which is we get something, and this is the throwable. And let's print, sorry, there was a typo, print that throwable. There actually is code in the JRE that prints the throwable rather nice. So we want to use that one, which is called print stack trace. So this is what we want to do. Sorry, it has a typo. And now it says we cannot return a void result. So why can't we do that? Remember, exceptionally wants to get back an instance. So we need to do some trick here. So we need more lines, and if we need more lines, we need curly braces. Again, this is no Jakarta REST problem. This is just the syntax of Java 8. So after having printed the throwable, we return just null. So this is pretty safe. We don't have a force to return an instance. We may return an instance. So if we cannot create an instance, we just return null. And what we have here is like a try catch. So it tries to do the start, and if it fails, it does the catch all here. And still we have the next step, which is then accept to consume the actual instance. So the hard point to understand is this returns instantly. It will not stop. This will be done in any case. So these 2 lines here, they just set up the configuration of our fiber. We start the fiber by the command to bootstrap in the background, which returns instantly, giving us the first single step in the fiber, which is the first completion stage. And we're attaching to that same completion stage 2 alternative outcomes. The first is if you fail, go here. The second is if you succeed, go here. Now let's start it. So the first time it starts always because there is no problem. And now let's start a second time because in the second time there is a blocked port. And now you see the stack trace that we want to have. And it clearly says what is the actual problem. It says address already in use. So the address is consisting of the hostname or the IP address and the port. So what it actually wants to tell us is the port is used. And if you want to know where it's come from, just look in the stack trace. You can find a bind here. So it does a net bind, which is binding on the IP port. So we have the first part of the solution, which is we see where the problem comes from. And this will work also certainly on Jersey. Let's go back here and call the Jersey code. We just need to make it the default profile. I still haven't learned how to do that in Visual Studio Code, by the way. If you know the answer, tell me. So we do the same with Jersey now. So it should tell us the same problem, but possibly a different stack trace because it's another implementation. So we have again address already in use. Thanks God, I know the problem. I found it out what the actual course is, but you can see it's still using the net bind, but here we have netty code and we haven't had that before because REST Easy is not calling that exact code. So as you can see, Jakarta REST provides you a common way to find out the bootstrapping problems without going into specific details or specific APIs of your product that you used. So the second step is how can we fix that? And this is pretty easy. Now let's come to the actual solution. The actual solution is rather easy. If you look at this code line, then you will see that what we're currently doing is that if there is no property given which tells the port, we are using a default value. The default value was explicitly given by me by either 8080 or 8081. It's arbitrary. And there are constants you can give here that are no real values for port, which is, for example, -1 or 0. And instead of typing them directly, you can use constants given by the Jakarta REST API. So let's use this one. In the Bootstrap, we need the configuration, and the configuration has, for example, default port. Default port is the number -1. -1 does the following. -1 is starting and tells Jersey or REST Easy use whatever you like. For example, Jersey would use 8080 always, and it will use 8081 on REST Easy. So this is a nice thing. If you want to get rid of the explicit port numbers, you can go with default port. So you have a static that is always the same when you start your server. This will never change. Jersey will always start with 8080, REST EC will always start with 8081. So this is nice in a container environment, for example, when you must know what the outcome actually is, without writing the port explicitly into your code, because you want to be able to switch the implementation. But we don't want to have this static outcome. The problem is that static outcome, because when it's used, it's already used. Yes, certainly. I know the solution is don't start a second time, right? But given the fact you want to start a second time, what can we do? This is another constant. It's called free port. And free port has the number 0. And the number 0 is treated in a special way directly in the networking code of Java. When you're binding to the port 0 in Java, you can read that in the Java docs of the JRE. It will select a free port, which means it scans all the port and it sees that there's a port that is not used and I'm using that one. So what happens now is when I run this one for the first time, then it picks an arbitrary port. By the way, it's an ephemeral port. So this 63965 is such a huge number that you don't need to be root to execute. By the way, it can happen depending on the implementation that this is not guaranteed. You have to check with your JRE implementation if it guarantees that this is an ephemeral port, by the way. So this is nothing Jersey does, this is nothing REST EC does or Jakarta REST does. The complete solution is done in the Java runtime environment. So depending on the Java runtime environment, the outcome might be different. Anyways, what I want to show you is if I have started once and I start a second time, then the result is another port number. Each time I start, I will get another port number because the system is scanning for a free port. This is a guarantee that the JRE gives you. You will always have a free port when you have the 0, and this is why we have this constant inside of Jakarta REST. So never do that in production code. It's really a mess. If you package this into a container, you won't be able to publish that variable, that port, because you just don't know it. Even if you print it on screen, Docker or other execution environments aren't able to parse this information. So you need a static port in containers. But for testing and for development, this is really great. And that is the final solution for my demo, because I am in a demo or in a development situation here. So this is the real solution. And certainly this solution also is working on REST EC. It's not bound to any implementation. And as always, I'm going with a solution that is not vendor bound. I always want to show you there is always a Jakarta REST common solution that will run unchanged without recompilation or code change on any implementation. As you can see here, it also works on REST EC. It provides a different port number each time I am starting. That's it for today. I hope you liked this video so much that you give it a both thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, or even donate some money on GitLab. And as always, stay safe and party on.